Welcome to the Throwdown.
All right.
Yeah.
It's time for the Throwdown. If you haven't been here in however many weeks, two things enter, one thing leaves. Easiest way to say it. So
That's
this
right.
week's Throwdown, Dougie Doug.
This week's Throwdown is a Joe Pesci Throwdown, where we have Joe Pesci as Tommy DeVito in Goodfellas versus Joe Pesci in Casino as Nicky Santoro. Justin and I were just shooting the shit in our production meeting, and we brought up Joe Pesci, and we talked about Goodfellas, we talked about Casino, and I was like, which one's crazier? And then we're like, hold on, put a pin in that. This is a Throwdown, because which one would win? And I thought I had an initial response right out of the gate.
Yeah.
I thought it would be Nicky from Casino.
That's where my mind went immediately.
Or maybe, I can't remember. Maybe I was thinking, Tommy from Goodfellas. Because I was like, because the more I thought about it, I'm like, they're basically the same character.
I mean, look, I love Joe Pesci, but if we're going to be honest, most of his early characters or characters around that time frame were the same character.
Yeah. Because so if we start with like Goodfellas, like Tommy is known as like a loose cannon. Like that guy is willing to kill, no problem.
Don't make fun of him. Don't laugh at him. Don't look at him the wrong way. Like he's got a hair trigger on him.
Yeah. He's like, he doesn't settle down. He's just kind of goes, doesn't have a family, just likes to bang a lot of chicks.
He's got his mom.
Yeah.
He's got his ma.
He's got his ma, and that's it. And yeah, he's just, he's the whole reason why they get into trouble, because he kills Frank Vincent's character.
Who's a made man.
Yeah, and who's a made man, and that kind of leads to all the trouble. So he's definitely a problem. But then Nicky Santoro in Casino is also problematic. I mean, he's a high-level hitman in the mob. He's feared. He's also, I wouldn't say, I don't know if he's as much of a loose cannon. He's just greedy.
He's greedy, but he also doesn't, I feel like he doesn't have any fear, because he just starts going off the rails. Kind of not listening to the guys back home, right?
Because he's greedy.
Isn't it in Chicago? Right?
It's in Kansas City.
Is it,
they couldn't say Chicago. Like they had to, I think my understanding is like they had to kind of like fudge some of this stuff because it was real. Supposedly the lore is they're like, yeah, we can't even let anybody know that we know who this is possibly about. So like, it's the Kansas City guys, it's the Detroit guys, it's the
in fairness, it's been a while since I've seen it, so all the details are.
I just rewatched it like 2 days ago, so it's very fresh in my mind. So Nicky goes out to Vegas,
right?
Originally to protect De Niro's character.
Right.
And protect the casino and the interest out there because they're making money hand over fist. But then Nicky sees the opportunity. He's like, he goes, I could fucking run this town. So he starts expanding his influence, starts like, handing out loans with interest, and starts, basically bullying people around. And he starts
cheating on with De Niro's wife.
He stops paying attention to what was needed, what the boss is saying. So it's really greed. He really wants to stake his claim. He really wants to own that. Tommy in Goodfellas isn't quite like that. He enjoys doing stuff. He likes to make money, but for him, I think the thrill is the violence of it all.
I would agree with that 100%. The thrill is the violence. Now, would you say that Nicky is more calculated, though? It sounds like Nicky lays out plans and follows them through a little bit.
The thing is, Nicky understands the problems, because at one point when things get really bad, when the bosses find out that he's banging De Niro's wife, he has a moment where he goes, I really fucked up here. Like, this is really bad. Like, he understands like the error of his ways. Tommy doesn't have that. Tommy killed an innocent kid for saying, go fuck yourself. And he doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. He'll kill anybody anytime. Doesn't matter. He's just, I don't know, man. I think he's a little more off his rocker. And I think because of that, because he's not aware. I mean, that's how he gets killed, right? I mean,
He's so blinded by the what he's being given. Like, I'm gonna go get made. His mom's proud of him, and he
can't fathom that he has done anything wrong that would ever have any sort of consequences.
Absolutely not.
And while he's, he can be tricky in a way of like how he does it, he's also pretty brazen at the same time. Yeah. Now, Nicky is also pretty brazen the way he and his crew act. I mean, they shoot up cops at one point in time. They're pretty brutal in the way they do it. But I feel like, it's tough. It's so tough.
The thing is, like, just the in that scene in Casino where De Niro is out in the desert and he and Pesci meets him out there, the voiceover and the demeanor, De Niro there's fear in it, in the character. Like, I don't want to call him. He
says,
what's
he goes,
his character's name?
What's that now?
What's his character's name? De Niro's character.
I think it's Sam.
I think you're right. I want to call them by their names, Nicky and not De Niro.
De Niro.
I feel like it's Sam, right?
I believe it's Sam. Casino. It is Sam Ace Rustine. That's right.
Yeah. All right. So when Sam meets Nicky out in the desert, like, he says in the voiceover something to the effect of, you don't know when Nicky asks you out to, you don't know if you're coming back. Right. And there's a legitimate like concern of like, I've got to have a stiff upper lip. So he carries with him, he carries a very large stick, right? Like, he's not someone to be trifled with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause I think the dialogue goes, 99 out of 100 times, I'm out here with Nick. I'm not worried. He goes, this time I gave myself 50-50 odds. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's like, especially they talk about digging holes in the desert and stuff like that, So I think this is really close. I think the ferocity is pretty much on par with both of them, like with what they're willing to do.
Right.
Also, like, Nicky was really big into stealing shit. That was what his guys did, is they would go and steal. High rollers would roll into town. They'd go steal their shit and things like that. They weren't above killing, that's for sure. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to come down to Tommy is a loose cannon, and I think he's easily baited.
Okay.
I think Nicky also has some trouble with some of his emotions, but I don't think it's as bad as Tommy. Tommy just seems unhinged. And Tommy seems, because again, we also see Nicky, Ace gets, he asks this guy, hey, is this your pen? The guy starts talking shit to him, and then Nicky grabs the pen, starts stabbing the guy. Like, basically, like, the guy's barely breathing. He's like, he's like, you hear that, Frank? You hear a little girl? You hear a little girl? Where's the tough guy that was just here a minute ago, like, bossing my friend around? He kicks him. There's a guy stabbing with a fucking fountain pen. So, pretty brutal. Yeah. Both of them. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like Nicky has more control, which is saying a lot. But I don't know if that's helpful or not.
I think it is help. I think that is advantage Tommy then, because while they're both able to do some heinous things, and neither of them are afraid of violence, and while I think Tommy can get baited or goaded easier, people can get his goat way easier. I do think that he is quicker to snap and snap harder than Nicky is. And so I think if they're both powder kegs, Tommy's got the slightly shorter fuse and he's going to blow quicker. And I think that gives him the advantage over Nicky, because while Nicky might be good at like plotting out like a robbery or some, like, he's figuring out how to expand his empire, it's not necessarily strategic in the moment. He still is reactionary when shit goes down. And if Tommy is popping off first, that's going to give Tommy the advantage. So I feel like my vote has to be, shockingly, Tommy, Joe Pesci in Goodfellas as Tommy DeVito.
Yeah, it's a tough call because I mean, we see what happens because the smallest insult sets Tommy off.
Right.
And, we see
Look
that
at Ray Liotta's character.
Yeah. Right.
When he's laughing at him and he just, like, the color drains out of his face when he's like, what, am I funny to you? And he's like, no, Tommy, that's not what I meant. Like, he is terrified that there was a slight misunderstanding. That speaks volumes.
Well, no, you see later in the movie, again, we referenced, the Frank Vincent moment where Frank Vincent is breaking his balls and he flies off the handle and he's like, keep him here. And he's like, we're going to fucking kill this guy. Like, it's tough. Yeah. I think in a situation, a flash situation, right? Which is kind of what we're talking about. We're not talking about give enough time, Batman can beat anybody sort of situation. I think if you went that route, if Nicky if there was a hit put out on Tommy and Nicky was taking care of it, I think Nicky would be able to get him easily, be able to bait him, take care of him, no problem. But and just to straight up sort of like, it'd be real easy to figure up anything where these guys would piss each other off. I think they would hate each other, and the slightest thing I think would set Tommy off. I think Tommy would just go and guns blazing. And I think you're right. I think I'd give the edge to Tommy from Goodfellas on this one.
Yeah. So we're gonna go Tommy.
God damn, that was really fun and really complicated. And
that was like an old school throwdown.
That really was.
That felt like an original throwdown.
It was such an even match too. Like just that's a tough one to break down. And we did it all by ourselves. Not that we have anything against the council. It was just like something we came up with. It was a nice surprise. It was like an old school thing where we came across it. So